Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you today another training, an essential training that's going to help you write a more engaging memoir. And it's all about living in the moment. It's about a mentality that I think you need to have when you're writing about your past. Obviously, you're writing 10, 20, 30, maybe even 40 years after the events in your past. So you have all that experience, you've got the knowledge of the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and that often causes you to actually jump out of the moments that you're writing about. And readers want to be immersed in your past. They want to be back with you, like on a time machine, back to the moment. They want to be there with you. And so this video is really essential, a small thing, but it's really essential to writing that memoir that will engage by immersing people in these past events. Before I get into the tips about living in the moment, how do you do this? How do you have this mentality? I just want to mention that this is part of the Memoir Workshop course and coaching program. So I work with writers on getting to the finish line with their memoir manuscripts. And this is just one example of the kind of coaching that I do. Now, living in the moment is crucial to memoir writing, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. So if you need help bringing together all those pieces, I'm here to help. This video is going to go through, as you can see on the screen there, a worksheet. And this worksheet is available for free. Just mention down below that you'd like to get a copy of this, and I'll send it to you. When you get a copy of it, you'll see two links right there. One is to schedule a free complimentary meeting with me. We can discuss your progress, how maybe I can help you push you forward, get you going, solve some problems that are really common in memoir writing, so you can sort of fast track your progress. So when you get this sheet, click on that Calendly link for the memoir workshop and just go through the schedule and pick a time, and we can meet and chat for 30 minutes. If you want to learn more about who I am, who's this guy on the internet that you have no idea about, check out that link in the worksheet to the YouTube video where I talk about myself and I talk about the Memoir Workshop course and coaching program. Because I know it's really hard to write a memoir. It's really challenging. Often you're all alone. You don't have any help. And sometimes you need that, and that's what I can provide in the Memoir Workshop. So with that out of the way, let's get to the point of this video, which is the Memoir Scene Immersion Guide. So when I'm reading my clients, my students' submissions in the Memoir Workshop, these are short scenes from their past, I often see some straying. So they stray from that past moment. They kind of take me out of the moment. And you really need to understand the importance of staying present in your memoir scene. So this guide that I'm going to go through in a second, and again, comment below if you'd like to get a copy of it. No need to take any notes here. I can send this to you. I'm going to help you capture and maintain the immediacy of your experiences. And that way you'll have the readers feeling like they're right there. It's like they're watching a movie, a documentary of what actually happened. So let's go through some of the essentials of scene immersion. So the number one essential of scene immersion, to create that immediacy that the readers really feel engaged in, is to maintain perspective. Again, you're writing from 10, 20, 30 years past. So a lot of times you fall out of the moment and actually you start giving retrospective commentary is the best way I can put it. And that pulls readers out of the scene. So you had this wonderful moment where something was happening, we're following you along, and then suddenly you want to provide commentary about things you learned. And that pulls the reader out of the scene. We're disengaged from the moment. Number two is to use detailed action. So that is to describe actions and reactions from different people in your past as they happened. So that means getting into great detail minimizing like abstractness. We're not writing school papers here. We're not writing philosophy papers. You got to be really specific to the moment. And I think sometimes people fall into what they were thinking at the time. And to be honest, in my own experience, I don't really remember 20 years later what I was thinking at that moment. I do remember the actions. I remember what happened. I remember what people said. I don't really remember myself consciously stopping and thinking about, when this happened. For example, I remember being on a sailboat when I was a kid, and the mast fell over and nearly took my brother with it, into the lake. He could have passed away, he could have drowned. I have no memory of what I was thinking at that moment. So avoid, the thoughts and that kind of thing, because that just takes us out of the moment, and it probably doesn't reflect what you were actually thinking or doing at that time. Another point about, creating this living in the moment feeling and immediacy is to have authentic dialogue. So that's keeping dialogue true to the moment. And that reflects the speaker, whoever that is, whether it's you, your mom, dad, siblings. It reflects their state of mind and situation. Because now, so many years later, you've got hindsight. And we don't want hindsight affecting the dialogue or changing it in some way. I know this is really hard. I have another training video that you can find online in the Telling Your Story Facebook group about writing compelling dialogue. It's not easy to do, particularly with the memory problems that we all have. But we really want to try to capture what they would have said in that moment. How else do we, create that living in the moment, sense? Another is sensory details. That means to enhance your scenes with sensory information, to build a really tangible, detailed, specific environment. So those senses are sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. I find that most beginning memoir writers focus on the sight. Sight is important. I mean, we need to see through your eyes, through your words. But it's not the only sense. And so don't forget the sound, the touch, the smell, and the taste. All those details will help us as readers come to the moment with you, to see everything, to hear everything, to touch everything, smell and taste everything, just as you did in the past. That's really the rich description we need to feel like we're there. If we don't get that rich description, we're not going to feel like we're right there in the room with you. I often say this, a metaphor, analogy, that sometimes when I don't get these details in my client's writing, I feel like I'm in another room. I'm on the other side of this wall. I'm not quite there with you. And so if you get all those sensory details in, then I will be right there with you, and I'll experience everything like I'm right on your shoulder. And that's going to create that engagement with readers. And then finally, number 5 on this list of kind of the essential tips to create that mentality or that living in the moment feeling is to avoid over foreshadowing. So I haven't said avoid foreshadowing completely, but avoid doing it too much. So that means, what does that mean? That means to resist the urge to hint too strongly at what's going to come. I know in television, right before the commercial, they'll hint at things to come to make sure you come back. And I know a lot of memoir writers of lesson books will talk about, maybe bringing a scene from later on to the start of your memoir, right? So that it hints at what's to come or shows what's going to come. And that's fine. But resist the urge to hint too strongly at upcoming events. Resist the urge to say that something big is going to happen in this scene. Because that's going to diminish the impact of that high point. When the high point does come, when the fight breaks out between your dad and your brother, when the earthquake hits during, grade 3 class, it's not going to hit as hard emotionally if you've already set out that something bad is going to happen. A few hints, are fine, but just don't overdo it. So those are the 5 essentials for scene immersion. Again, it's hard to do. This is something that you have to constantly remind yourself. And I would suggest maybe during the revision stage to think about some of these things, not at the drafting stage. But it is very hard. I know it's very challenging to keep your mind focused on just telling the story, showing the story, that moment, without falling back on, well, I want to contextualize it. I want to say what I think about it now in the moment. But these tips should help you to do that. Now, so again, on the sheet, I mentioned some techniques. One is the immediate action. Start scenes with action to grab attention and set the tone. Have a consistent voice. So it can be helpful to have a voice that matches the moment, or at least if you're writing in your current voice, that you don't constantly talk about the present and what that past event means for the present. Occasionally, maybe in an introduction, preamble, you can do that, but let's get into the moment and just have that consistent voice. And then again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, subtle hints are okay. So some light foreshadowing, but not in every scene, the hinting that something bad's going to happen. We can have a little bit of foreshadowing, but then let the scene play out so that when the big moment hits, it's like, wow, it really hits us right in the head. It's like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. So this sheet, again, requested below the video, has a little checklist there. So I've got the little boxes, and you can check off whether you've done some of these things. And I think if you focus on these 5 elements, your memoir scenes will transport the readers to the moments. Just like I said earlier, like a time machine, it'll take them back and allow people to experience your story, as if they were actually there, as if we're watching it on a documentary video. So I think the key to powerful memoir writing lies in the authenticity of that moment, capturing life as it was lived, not just as you remember it today. Now, I know I've given a lot of details here, and when you get the sheet from me, it might be a lot to think about or a lot to process. That's why I mentioned just the memoir workshop, my coaching. Why don't you just leave it to me? I can look over your stories and offer a lot of this kind of critique that I've offered here today. And many of my clients, I go through their stories and I say these things. I say, here, you've dropped out of the story for a moment. Delete that so that I stay in the moment. This is the kind of commentary I give in the memoir workshop. So I hope this video has helped you today. And again, we can chat on the Telling Your Story Facebook group, or you can contact me through this Calendly link and set up a meeting to discuss your memoir. Thanks.